And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Now, this is obviously, like I mentioned yesterday, a literary device. Chapter 10 covers a whole big section of time, and now we're going to go back and focus on one detail. So it's a retelling of the story, because we're going to get into the Tower of Babel in more detail. Okay. Over here, for this, there, okay. It came to pass, I love it, in the Bible it never comes to stay, always comes to pass. You got trouble and trials in your life, it will pass. You might have to die to get rid of it, but it'll pass, okay? It came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick. Most Bible scholars think this is some kind of, they said, go to, is some kind of council agreement. Okay, let's make an agreement, let's make a decision. We're going to make brick and build a tower. So they had some kind of council. Whether that's what it means or not, I don't know, but that seems to be what most Bible scholars say on this. Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. There's several theories about this. Are they building this tower in spite of heaven's command? Are they building it to actually try to do sacrifices on top of the tower? Are they building it high enough that the flood can't flood them again? Is it one of the ziggurats or a pyramid? I don't know. But God had said, spread out, and they don't want to do it. Let us build a tower. Let's make a city. And let us make us a name lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. This is Genesis 11. You remember back from chapter 9, God had told Noah, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. Spread out and fill the earth up. They said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to stay here. Many people know exactly what God wants them to do, and they don't want to do it. Okay, this is the people here. They don't want to do it. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And most Bible maps will have a tower or something like this. They 3/4 of the way done building their Tower of Babel, and God confounded the languages. Verse number 6. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down. Now God's having a council, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. I've been in 37 countries. I've seen many different languages spoken, and it would take forever to learn them all. I don't think you could. I think one of the guys on the King James Translation Committee spoke 11 languages. They said, where was I? In one of the European countries, they said if you speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you're an American. That's kind of the way it goes, right? That they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Sometimes God has to interrupt our plans when we're running from Him, has to slap us a few times and say, no, knock it off. You do that with your kids all the time. They got their own plans, what they want to do, and you got to say, no, this is not what you're going to do. So, therefore, is the name of it called Babel, where we get the phrase a babbling idiot. Makes no sense. Babel. Because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Now, starting here in chapter 11, we can pick up with the genealogy again on the timeline. So Shem begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Here we go. Now we can finish the timeline. Before the flood, this section is given in Genesis chapter 5. Now you skip up to chapter 11 to get the details to do the rest of this chart. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and had sons and daughters. And Arphaxad and Selah, and it gives all these names, Eber and Peleg. We talked about that last time. Peleg, the earth was divided during his time. And Ru and Serug and Nahor and Taran. You can get all the numbers right there from Genesis chapter 11 and make the chart yourself. Here they are. Arphaxad, Selah, Eber, Peleg, Ru. Here's the flood, this white line here. These are the guys after the flood. We see that the lifespans drop off from 400 to 200 to 100 something. Today, not many make it to 100. Something was different back then. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. And most people think, and Henry Morris has a great footnote in his Bible there, I think he's dead on, this is Terah, Abram's father, signing off. He's done. So he would have written chapter 10 and part of chapter 11. He's signing off, and he's going to hand it off to the next person. These guys are probably passing the actual records off to a living person from the guy who wrote it. It wasn't finding some record someplace. This was the real thing. Terah could have easily known Shem, Noah's son. Terah's way down here. Shem lived long enough to know Terah easily. Noah probably could have, yes. Noah, well, Shem outlived Terah, and Noah almost outlived Terah. So you got to get one of those charts to study that. Here's the city of Ur of the Chaldees. It says, Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. Well, today Chaldea is called Babylon. It was called Babylon for a while. Today it's called Iraq. Here is the city of Ur. I don't know if it's in Kuwait. What today is Kuwait? It's awful close to the Kuwait-Iraq border. Somewhere around there. Who cares? Anyway. And Abram and Nahor took them wives, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran. There's a joke, used to be a joke in Bible joke books, what 8 men milked a bear in the Bible? I don't know. Well, later on it says Milcah had 8 sons for her husband, and so these 8 did milk a bear to Nahor, Abraham's father, or something like that. These 8 did milk a bear. Never mind. Okay. Abram's wife was, now Abram later became Abraham, and Sarai later became Sarah. God changed their names. Milcah, the daughter of Haran, his niece, the father of Milcah and the father of Ishkah. But Sarai was barren, she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, so that would be the nephew. It'd be Terah's grandson, but Abram's nephew, Lot. And Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran. They made it about a little over halfway, and they stopped. Haran means parched, a dry desert land. Some people say it means delay, just a distraction. They came from Ur of the Chaldees, made it as far as Haran, and stopped. Very interesting lesson here. We'll see in chapter 12. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, which would be Ur, and from thy kindred, get away from your family, and from thy father's house. So the Lord had said this to Abram. Abram, get away from your family, get away from your father's house. I'm going to show you a special land. But it didn't work out that way. Terah took Abram his son and Lot, and they all came to go to Canaan. He never should have brought his dad or his nephew with him. But he did. God said clearly, Get out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. And they wasted a lot of time in Haran waiting for Dad to die. They shouldn't have stopped there. Sometimes God tells us clearly what to do, and we do half of it and end up delaying our life and delaying God's blessings for us. Jesus told the disciples after Jesus rose from the dead, they're out there fishing. He said, Hey, you guys catch anything? No, we didn't catch nothing. We fished all night. He said, Throw the nets on the other side. Peter said, Look, we fished all night, but I'll let down the net. Jesus said nets, plural. He said, I will let down the net, singular. What happened when they let down the net, singular? It broke. It filled so full of fishes, it broke. You should let down the nets, plural. And Abram should not have taken his father and his nephew. Later we'll see in chapter 13 what happened to his nephew Lot. He moved down to what city? Sodom and Gomorrah. And Lot ended up committing incest with his two daughters and had two whole nations that never should have been born, the Moabites and the Ammonites. And they caused trouble for Israel for the next 2,000 years. And it all started with Abram's incomplete obedience. Just completely obeyed. Anyway, so Abram went from Ur of the Chaldees up to Haran, stayed there till Dad died. Now, this is interesting. While he was here, he could have easily met Shem, because Noah's Ark is 350 miles away. Probably Noah and Shem stayed right near there. That's what the best guess. They stayed right there. Planted a vineyard. Began to be a husbandman. So this is where they could have easily passed off the records. See, Abram could have met Noah. Noah was still alive. Certainly Shem was still alive. There's a lot of things you just can't get until you get a chart and say, whoa, that's pretty cool. I've got a whole bunch of points to ponder down here. You ought to just stop and read those sometime. Like, wow, I never thought of that. Noah almost knew Adam. They just lived a long time back there. Now, Methuselah, as old as Methuselah, certainly could have known Adam and Shem. And Shem could have easily known Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So when you graph it out, it starts to make more sense to you. Anyway, so, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. See, God called Abram to leave his family, and he didn't do it. How many people drag their family down because they take them with them on something they shouldn't be with them on? Incomplete obedience. It ended up ruining Terah's life and ruining Lot's life, as we'll see later. I just want to take this simple lesson to look at Abraham's a great man of God in many ways, but he didn't quite completely obey. We need to stop and look, okay, God, what have you told me to do? Okay, God, let me listen to that a couple more times and get the details here. What exactly do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do, Lord? He's usually spelling it out clearly in his word. So, Haran, they delayed for a long time. Probably got the records passed off directly from Shem to Terah. Terah then passed them off to the next guy. There are 10 authors of Genesis. We'll get into that some other time. So I just want to encourage you, if God has called you to do something, do it. Don't delay. Don't waste time doing it. Some people say, well, God, how many people have God's called them to do something and they never do it their entire life? They know what God wanted them to do, and they just dilly-dally and delay and waste their life away and die, never having completed the plan God had for them. Man, I want God's best. I want to be right smack in the middle of his will. And sometimes that, like Daniel was right smack in the middle of God's will, and that meant going into the lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were taken captive as kids. They had nothing to do with that, made into a eunuch. Had to serve the king who did that to them, and they ended up in a fiery furnace. Sometimes God's plan is to go through something like that, but it reaches the whole world. We never would have heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego if it hadn't been for that.